How's it going, guys? Coffee here. Today I wanted to go over some tips, I think, for new players to ensure they have a smoother experience at the beginning of early access, as well as talk about what I plan to be playing on League Start. And first, let's go into what I'm going to League Start on, and I am going to actually League Start on Deadeye. I know for a lot of people, they don't really want to go Deadeye just because it's not new, right? But I really think it's going to have very, very strong potential, especially the interactions with grenades, because of how hard it is to actually get an additional projectile on basically everything. Getting an additional projectile, again, you can only use a single multiple projectile support gem. Volley wasn't in the list that Havoc had for gems, so you might only be able to actually get these through your extra projectile on the tree, and then the one support gem to support a single grenade. So with that being on Deadeye, the first 4 points that I plan to be spending on the tree are going to be into point blank and then into the grenades. Early on, will probably take it and just put this into far shot, just because you won't be using grenades until you get to like the mid-level 30s or level 40, most likely. But realistically, it's just going to depend on what gear you have. I think the most important thing that everyone can be doing is ensuring that they are being extremely flexible, or plan to be extremely flexible on whatever character they're playing, to basically flow with whatever gear you are getting to drop. If you get strong pieces of gear, if I get strong pieces of gear for bows, I'm fully leaning into bows and pushing my skill tree towards directions for bows. And if I, am getting really strong crossbow drops, then I'm fully leaning into the grenades or into the, the actual bullet skills on the crossbow, or the bolt skills rather. But either way, the going into point blank or far shot first, most likely far shot if you're not fully on grenades yet. And then you push that and you immediately get the endless munitions as soon as you can. After that, basically the plan is most likely to be leaning into the, again, it'll depend if we're doing enough damage with grenades and it's working as well as we intend. Most likely the next points are just going to be in Gathering Winds and Wind Ward. And we're just going to be relying on our ability to dodge effectively, as well as have a good solid amount of basically crowd control between stuns and between freezes. With that, in order to ensure that we are actually able to build up Tailwind. Most likely, though, the path is going to end up being taking Avidity and Thrilling Chase to really lean into the Frenzy Charge mechanics. There are some potentially really, really strong applications with Rain of Arrows and with all of the other skills that you can use on a bow. So let's go over the skills here for the bows that you're actually going to be using here, with bows as well as with your crossbows. So first thing, we have Barrage here, which will empower your next bow attack to repeat again, plus again for every frenzy charge consumed. This is some late game stuff here. Again, you're not unlikely to have a bunch of frenzy charges early on, but what this does do is it will just basically give you, again, a giant barrage of attacks where it's going to repeat the same attack a bunch of times based off the frenzy charges. Obviously, if you have the thing duplicating all of the frenzy charge effects, you're going to get a large benefit out of that. Next thing we have here is we just have, again, our standard bow shot. We have cluster grenades. These, again, are they're like level 52 required, I believe. This level 13, I think, is the tier 13 being the level I believe these unlock at, possibly. So like the gem unlocks at at a level 13 gem, which happens to be level 52. The other arrows that we have here, we have Detonating Arrow, Electrocuting Arrow. Escape Shot will be very, very strong, of course, just because the extra very, very high chance to freeze. And then we have our Explosive Grenade if we do end up on crossbows. We do have Explosive Shot, Flash Grenade again if we end up on a grenade setup early on. Probably going to have to wait a bit to do this, but it is there. We do have Freezing Salvo here, which is a uses this in order to this is interesting. I guess is this a channeling skill? It just doesn't say channel though. I'm not really sure how this works. I guess just over time, it's just going to build things up and then fire them off eventually. Okay, so you start this cast and it just waits a while and then eventually fires off. That's actually kind of interesting. I didn't even look at that. So the main things that I was really looking at here was actually in regards to Ice Shot. So Ice Shot itself, it does convert 40% of physical damage to cold. It can chill, which I believe means it can build up your chill meter very, very high and leave something ready to freeze. And then you just need to fire another bow attack of some sort in order to push them over the threshold to freeze, and then you Ice Shot them again. So the plan with this is to actually lean into some points on the skill tree here that are actually pretty close. If you actually go path just straight up to the upper side here, where the monk will start, there's actually this node right here, Essence of the Mountain, which gives increases freeze buildup and gains 5% of damage as extra cold damage. So there's a few reasons why we're going to want to path this direction on the tree first. So first things first, we're going straight over here into this projectile speed and attack speed, and then we are grabbing this movement speed node. In Path of Exile 2, with there being no movement skills, movement speed is king. This is going to be the best stat you can possibly be getting, and we're all going to be trying to get as much of it as we possibly can. Then there is a little 6-point or 7-point path over here to get Step Like Mist, which is another 4% movement speed. And then this leads into this Essence of the Mountain, which gives us extra cold damage. We don't know what this projectile node does, but given it's only 2 points away, we're most likely going to end up taking it. If we end up having mana issues, we will end up picking up Siphon. If we don't, then we're not going to touch it, right? And then if you are having concentration issues or stun issues, then we can take Unbroken Concentration, but I don't know if it's going to be necessary if we are just playing optimally. So that's the plan. Trust in ourselves to play well. You do end up taking this clean shot here for some extra projectile damage, and then you can path either this way through the wellspring here, or most likely you're just going to end up going around it. Again, if we're not having mana issues, we'll just go around this thing like this. You'll grab this outmaneuver here to get this stun and freeze build up, and then you're basically going to start pathing this way over towards the grenades. So by pathing this way, you are able to pick up this projectile damage build up here and stun build up, which does help with, again, like flash grenade and with a lot of the shots that are going to be stunning. And then we are going to take this chance to chain off of terrain, as well as this cooldown recovery rate. And then we are pathing down here into these grenade nodes here. Those are grenades have +1 cooldown. And then this grenade skills fire an additional projectile. And then you're using this again. The fuses will get longer, but if you use this combined with explosive shot, then your grenades will be actually blowing up very, very quickly. So over here, we go to explosive. Here, you can see explosive shot will detonate any grenades that are on the ground in its area. So you can use that to basically forcefully trigger your grenades, even if they have a really high cooldown. Or really high fuse, rather. We've got this extra movement speed because, as we said before, movement speed is going to be the best thing, especially for our survival. Movement speed is going to be the one thing we need to ensure we're able to get out of the way of things trying to kill us. You are going to want to grab this Distracting Presence here, as it is going to be, again, cooldown recovery rate for you and lowers the cooldown recovery rate of enemies. So it's going to make them have basically lower cooldowns on their big damaging attacks. Next thing we have, we're pathing all the way down over here. You're going to want to grab this cooldown recovery rate as well as the increased AoE, and then we're going to want to grab this 15% chance to activate a second time for grenades. If for some reason you are using crossbow attacks, you will probably want to grab this node here for reusable ammunition, but most likely you are probably not going to care to really path into that if you're leaning heavily into grenades, like I believe we will. Then you're probably going to want to path over here and to get levitation. This should help with survivability a ton, just because any of the ground effects, again, if they don't take effect for you for a whole second while you're standing on them, it gives you time to run straight through them instead of having to run around them. So that's the biggest intention with that. And then again, if we're having sustain issues, we'll probably grab refills here in order to get some extra flask charges. If you're playing well, you don't need to do it. And then the plan is to path up here into this extra cooldown recovery rate here, and then most likely grab these nodes here in the middle for some elemental res pen, and then some extra freeze buildup and ignite buildup like that. So there's a lot of nodes over here, right? So these are most likely going to change at some point, right? We don't, this may change the pathing that we end up doing dramatically. This appears to be complete bow nodes right here, right? This is an arrow. Here, this is a bow. So maybe this is just projectile nodes, actually. Because that's a projectile, and then these are going to be the bow nodes over here. So there's going to be some good bow nodes over here that may draw us towards being fully leaning into bows instead of grenades. But based off of the information we have right now, grenades seem like they're going to be really strong, especially on the deadeye, again, with that extra projectile. But as the tree actually over here ends up coming out, you might end up with better off. It might seem better off to do that here, right? We have this chance to chain off of terrain, which will, potentially be good if you actually have some chain around. Again, you only get the one chain support, so you'll have to have a source of chain in some degree. Yeah, these do say an additional time, so they do still have to have a chain available. I'm kind of curious if that means they need to have already chained before they hit the terrain as well. I don't think so. I think they just mean like they still have to have a chain available in order to actually use that. It doesn't just give all of your projectiles a free chain, basically. It just gives the ones that missed a chance to chain off the terrain. So we'll have to see, I guess, again. The more we get to play with this stuff all may change. The beauty of Path of Exile 2, though, is, again, you have the ability to respec at any time using gold. From what we've seen, the gold cost on respecking is actually incredibly low, especially at lower levels. So when you're respecking at level 40, you're able to just basically smoothly do that. If you want to redo your entire tree, you can do that, right? So we can be fully leveling into bows all the way, and then when we get our when we hit our basically power spike by getting endless munitions to get our second project or our extra projectile, at that point we can unspec everything in bows and go right over to crossbows, right? So that's kind of something you really want to take advantage of, because again, just go with the flexibility of what your gear and what your ascendancy and what your class is actually giving you, because that is going to be the best way to push yourself quickly through things. So it's not going to be as straightforward, cut and dry as it is in Path of Exile, where one thing fully comes out way ahead regardless of what gear you get, or where you're going to basically be forcing yourself to like handcraft a specific leveling weapon, things like that. You're going to be better off, again, really paying attention to the gear you're getting, especially the weapons, and then making sure you are leaning into whatever you are getting, and then cutting the uncut gems accordingly based off of what weapon you are using. So, yeah, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below, and other than that, I'll see you in the next one, and I will be streaming tomorrow night about this time, so like 7:30, 8 p.m. Pacific. I do have work, so I am going to be having a late start, but that will be me starting at level 1 a little late, so it'll be interesting to see what information's already come out by the time I'm playing then. Have a good one.